The crystal chime of a fork against a wine glass sliced through the comfortable murmur of my dining room. All eyes turned to Brittany, my daughter-in-law, who stood with that porcelain smile I had come to know as a prelude to a carefully aimed dart. "A toast," she declared, her voice syrupy sweet, her glass held aloft. The candlelight caught the deep ruby of the Cabernet, making it look like a liquid jewel. "To my dear mother-in-law, Rosalia. The woman who pays all our bills," she paused, letting the words hang, a predator savoring the moment before the strike. Her eyes, the color of a shallow sea, swept across the table of her friends, strangers who looked at me with a mixture of curiosity and pity. "But who will never, ever be a real mother?" The silence that followed was not merely an absence of sound, it was a physical presence, thick and suffocating, pressing down on the table with the weight of a tombstone. I saw the reactions in slow motion, the horrified parting of a guest's lips, the swift, downward glance of another. And then there was Ethan. My son. His shoulders slumped as if bearing a great shame, his gaze fixed intently on his half-eaten salmon, refusing to meet my eyes. The final pillar of my world crumbled into dust in that single, cowardly act. 15 years. The number echoed in my mind, a mournful bell tolling for a decade and a half of my life. 15 years of bank transfers and mortgage payments, of tuition fees and luxury vacations, of emergencies that were always too urgent to question. I had poured my fortune, my energy, and my lonely heart into this family, and for what? To be publicly flayed by the very woman whose life I financed. While Brittany took a triumphant sip of her wine, savoring her cruelty, I remained perfectly still. My back was straight, my hands resting calmly on the linen napkin folded in my lap. The storm of a lifetime raged within me, but on the surface, I was a placid lake. Then, with a serenity that felt both alien and empowering, I reached into my purse. The object I retrieved was small, unassuming. A single, golden key. It made a soft, definitive clink as I placed it in the center of the polished mahogany table, right beside the cream-colored envelope I had prepared that very morning. The sound was a full stop at the end of a very long, very mistaken sentence. Ethan's eyes snapped up from his plate. He saw the key. His gaze darted to the envelope, and I watched, with a detached fascination, as the blood drained from his face. The shame transformed into pure, unadulterated terror. "Mom," he stammered, his voice cracking like a teenager's. "No. Tell me you didn't. Please, tell me you didn't." But I was already rising. My simple black dress, a uniform of a widow who had forgotten how to live, swayed gently as I pushed my chair back. I did not look at him. I did not look at Brittany, whose smug smile was finally beginning to falter. I looked only at the door. Every step I took across the hardwood floor was a drumbeat of finality, a declaration of independence that was 15 years overdue. The key was to their house. Their house, in my name. The note in the envelope was brutally simple, a stark contrast to the flowery, manipulative language I had endured for so long. "You have 30 days to vacate. The legal papers will arrive tomorrow." The cool night air outside was a baptism. I inhaled deeply, the scent of damp earth and distant rain washing away the cloying stench of betrayal from the dinner party. As I drove away, the memories came unbidden, not as a gentle stream, but as a torrential flood. I remembered arriving at their door 20 years ago, a 49-year-old widow with a heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. Robert, my beloved, my partner in everything, was gone, taken by a cruel twist of fate on a rain-slicked highway. He left me with a crushing grief, a formidable construction business I had helped build from the ground up, and a substantial inheritance. And Ethan, our only son, barely 24 and suddenly unmoored. When he brought Brittany home, she seemed like a gift. A beautiful, 22-year-old with cascading brown hair and a disarming shyness. "Mom," Ethan had said, his face alight with a hope I hadn't seen since his father's death, "this is the woman I'm going to marry." And Brittany had hugged me, her voice a whisper in my ear, "I hope we can be like mother and daughter." How desperately I wanted to believe her. I had always longed for a daughter, for that unique bond of feminine confidences and shared wisdom. For a glorious, fleeting period, she filled that void. We lunched, we shopped, we planned her wedding. I paid, of course, but I did so joyfully, believing I was investing in a future of genuine love. The requests started small. A down payment for a young couple just starting out. A new car, because the old one wasn't safe for the family I dreamed they would have. A trip to Europe, a delayed honeymoon. Then came the credit cards for emergencies, the monthly stipend for basic expenses, which somehow always grew. Brittany perfected the art of the guilt-laced compliment. "It must be so nice to have your peace of mind," she'd sigh. "I wish we could stop worrying about bills." And I, the lonely widow, would open my checkbook, each signature a plea, "Love me. Need me. Let me be part of your life." The births of my grandchildren, Caroline and Thomas, cemented my role as the family financier. I was there for every milestone, checkbook in hand. The private schools, the ballet lessons, the soccer camps, the extravagant vacations to Disney World and Cancun, I funded a paradise, and in doing so, I built my own gilded cage. Ethan stopped working 5 years ago, lured by the siren song of a vague entrepreneurial venture that never materialized. I saw him less and less, a 39-year-old man adrift in a sea of my making, playing video games while his wife spent my money on handbags that cost more than a month's honest wage. The final straw wasn't a single event, but the accumulation of 1,000 paper cuts. The cancelled Mediterranean cruise because of Thomas's minor surgery that their insurance fully covered. The $50,000 investment that vanished into a pyramid scheme while my own apartment remained undecorated. My life had been put on hold, my own dreams shelved to maintain their illusion of self-made success. But that toast, that was the match that lit the pyre. Back in the serene silence of my own apartment, high above the glittering city, I poured a glass of rich, red wine, a far cry from the one I had abandoned. I stood at the floor-to-ceiling window, my reflection superimposed on the tapestry of lights below. The tired woman in the glass had eyes that still held a spark. The spark that had intimidated business rivals, that had captivated Robert, that had built an empire from grief. I saw not a victim, but Rosalia Jenkins. Widow. Mother. Businesswoman. Survivor. I went to my desk, a fortress of mahogany and order, and pulled out the evidence of my folly. Deeds, bank statements, credit card bills, a ledger of exploitation that totaled over $400,000. The numbers were staggering, but the emotional cost was immeasurable. Then I picked up the phone and called Greg Stevens, my lawyer for over a decade. "Greg," I said, my voice steady. "First thing tomorrow, I need you to prepare eviction papers for the Maple Street property. And I want every single credit card and bank transfer authorization in their names canceled." There was a weighted pause. "Rosalia, are you sure? This is a nuclear option." "I have never been more certain of anything in my life," I replied, the truth of the words resonating in my bones. The next morning, I dressed for war. A pearl gray suit, my armor. Hair in a severe bun. In the mirror, the ghost of the formidable woman I had once been nodded back at me in approval. The calls to the bank were methodical, surgical. Each cancelled was a thread snipped from the tangled web that bound me. The $2,500 monthly stipend. The car payment. The country club membership. Gone. The phone began to ring around 10 a.m. Ethan's name flashed on the screen, a frantic, pulsing beacon of their panic. I let it go to voicemail. After 15 calls, I finally answered. "Mom, what's going on?" His voice was shrill, bordering on hysteria. Brittany's card was declined at the grocery store. The bank said everything's blocked. "Good morning, Ethan," I said, my tone cool and even. "I trust you slept well." "In my house." "Our house. We've lived here for 15 years. A house I bought, that is in my name, and for which you have never paid a single cent. The eviction notice will arrive today. You have 30 days. The silence on the other end was profound. I could hear his ragged breathing. "Mom, please, we can talk about this." Brittany went too far, but... She didn't go too far, Ethan. She finally said the quiet part out loud. "And you just sat there. You have allowed her to disrespect me for years while living off my generosity. Well, the Bank of Mom is permanently closed." I hung up, the action feeling more significant than any signature on a check. The following weeks were a masterclass in desperation and manipulation. Brittany texted, using the children as pawns. The kids don't understand why Grandma is angry. My response was firm, yet held a door open for them alone. The children are always welcome. You and Ethan have 30 days. Ethan appeared in my lobby, a specter of defeat. We're family, he pleaded, his eyes hollow. When was the last time you called me just to see how I was? I asked, my voice soft but unyielding. When was the last time you defended me? You can't remember, can you? That's not family, Ethan. That's servitude. The most pivotal moment came when my grandchildren, Caroline and Thomas, visited me. Over hot chocolate and cookies, I told them the truth their parents had hidden. Grandma, Caroline, 14 and preternaturally perceptive, asked, "Is it true you're taking our house?" "The house is, and always has been, mine," I explained gently. "I have paid for everything, your school, your clothes, your vacations. Your parents have chosen not to work because they knew I would." The dawning understanding in their eyes was a painful, but necessary, surgery. They confessed to hearing their mother's cruel comments about me. They realized they had been living a lie, a life of unearned luxury built on a foundation of my loneliness and their parents' indolence. "I feel ashamed," Caroline whispered, and in that moment, I saw the woman she could become, one with integrity. My lawyer discovered more ugliness, secret credit cards, totaling $50,000, taken out in my name without my knowledge. The betrayal was not just emotional, it was criminal. 3 months after that fateful dinner, I found myself on a terrace in Florence, sipping a cappuccino as the sun warmed the ancient stones. I was free. A text from Caroline lit up my phone. Dad got a job at a construction company. Mom's translating part-time. I'm babysitting. It's weird, but I think we're happier now. And so was I. I had not sought revenge, I had staged a rescue mission for my own soul. I had learned the most valuable lesson of all: the love you have to buy isn't love. It's just another transaction, and one that ultimately costs you everything. I was no longer just a mother, a grandmother, or a mother-in-law. I was Rosalia. And for the first time in 15 years, that was more than enough.